You're standing at the edge of a crumbling empire. The air is thick with propaganda. The streets echo with slogans, and at the center of it all sits a fool. A man devoid of wisdom, incapable of reflection, yet drunk with confidence. Around him swarm advisors who nod without thought, citizens who cheer without understanding, and institutions that bend to his whims. You look around and ask yourself, how did this happen? How did someone so blind, so transparently shallow, end up with so much power over so many lives? Now look closer, not at him, but at history. Again and again, the pattern repeats. The foolish rise, the wise withdraw, and society applauds the spectacle while its foundation rots. It's not just a tragedy, it's a design. This is not a glitch in the system, it is the system. Because the truth, the one you're not supposed to see, is that power rarely seeks wisdom. Power craves utility, control, simplicity. And the fool, unburdened by doubt, makes for the perfect weapon. He charges forward without reflection. He obeys without question. He destroys without guilt. And in the shadows, those truly in control, those with cunning, not conscience, reap the rewards. But here's the paradox. The world teaches you that intelligence will rise, that competence is rewarded, that truth will win. Yet you watch mediocrity climb thrones while brilliance crumbles in exile. So you begin to wonder, what kind of world punishes thoughtfulness and rewards foolishness? Why does society silence the philosopher, but hand the megaphone to the demagogue? What if Machiavelli already answered this centuries ago? What if power doesn't just tolerate ignorance, but requires it? And what if the real danger isn't the fool in charge, but the millions who let him in? Let's go deeper. Beneath the surface of every empire built on ignorance lies something far more insidious than stupidity. It's comfort. The human mind, as Carl Jung warned, is not drawn to truth. It's drawn to safety, to predictability, to stories that soothe, not scars that awaken. And this is precisely where the fool thrives, not by offering clarity, but by offering certainty, loud, unyielding certainty. Because in a chaotic world, the fool's greatest weapon is his inability to doubt himself. Now ask yourself, who does the average person follow? The silent thinker wrestling with moral complexity? Or the loud fool who promises easy answers? Schopenhauer said it plainly. The common man is not concerned with truth, but with what is useful to him. And usefulness, in this context, often means reducing the unbearable complexity of life into a slogan, a symbol, a scapegoat. The philosopher destabilizes. He questions what you worship. He holds a mirror to the grotesque. But the fool, he confirms your bias. He flatters your illusions. He tells you that your fear is noble and your ignorance is strength. And for that, the masses adore him. Add to that the evolutionary trap. Our tribal brains are wired for hierarchy. We follow leaders not because they are right, but because they appear strong. And strength, in a broken society, is often nothing more than shamelessness dressed in confidence. Friedrich Nietzsche foresaw this decay. The last man, satisfied with comfort, terrified of greatness. And Machiavelli, misunderstood as a cynic, merely documented the brutal efficiency of power. Morality is optional. Optics are not. So here lies the truth you were never taught. Power doesn't rise through wisdom. It rises through perception. And perception is easily manipulated when the masses are exhausted, distracted, and afraid. But what happens to a world where fools sit on thrones and the wise remain silent? The consequences are not coming. They're already here. Look around you, not just at governments, but workplaces, social media, classrooms, relationships. Notice who commands attention. It's rarely the most insightful. It's the loudest, the most performative, the one most willing to play the role. This is no accident. The fool who rises to power doesn't just poison the system, he rewires it. Over time, the people stop seeking truth. They seek winners. And in a world where winning is defined by noise, ruthlessness, and simplicity, the fool becomes king, again and again. But what's the cost? It starts subtle. Thoughtful people stop speaking. Empaths retreat. Visionaries burn out. Because in an environment that rewards simplicity, complexity becomes a threat. You see it in meetings where the thoughtful are overrun by the bold. In schools where questioning is punished and memorization is praised. In friendships where vulnerability feels unsafe because performance has replaced presence. There's a term for this: the spiral of silence. It's a psychological phenomenon where those with dissenting views, sensing they're in the minority, choose to remain silent, not because they lack conviction, but because they fear social isolation. So the fool's voice grows louder, not because he is right, but because the wise have been conditioned to disappear. And what happens when a culture exiles its depth, its doubt, its conscience? You get institutions without soul, progress without meaning, power without wisdom. Aldous Huxley warned of this long ago. Not a world ruled by tyranny through pain, but a world enslaved by distraction, by shallow pleasure, by illusions so intoxicating that people stop caring about truth at all. And when truth no longer matters, who rises? The one who lies the best. But here's the good news. Silence is not surrender, and withdrawal is not the only option. Some choose rebellion. Rebellion doesn't begin with a protest sign. It begins with a thought you're not supposed to think, a question you're not supposed to ask, a refusal to laugh at the joke everyone else pretends is funny. It's subtle at first. You notice the script. You stop playing along. That's when it starts. Freedom. Because once you see that the fool rises only because we consent to the performance, something breaks. And something far more powerful is born. Discernment. Machiavelli, contrary to the caricature painted by modern ignorance, never glorified corruption. He understood it. He knew that to survive in a world ruled by fools, one must become dangerous. Not violent, not cruel. Dangerous in mind, dangerous in perception. Dangerous because you can no longer be manipulated by shallow displays of strength. That's what the system fears. It doesn't fear rebellion in the streets. It fears rebellion of consciousness. Think of Socrates, corrupting the youth with questions. Of Jung, inviting people to confront their own darkness instead of projecting it onto the world. Of Viktor Frankl, finding meaning in the absurdity of suffering. These were dangerous men, not because they had armies, but because they thought in ways that exposed the lies. You want to reclaim power? Then stop measuring success by how well you fit in. Start by noticing where you're pretending, where you're nodding along but feel a scream inside. Power begins there, in that rupture. And when you reclaim your voice, not the loud voice, but the true one, you become immune to the fool's charm, because now you see him for what he is, not a leader, but a puppet dancing in the ruins of a culture that gave up thinking. But there's one more layer. One final truth that changes everything, and once you see it, you can't go back. Here it is, the revelation no one wants to face. The fool in power is a reflection, not of a broken system, not of some distant crowd, but of something buried within you. Yes, you. Because the reason fools rise is not just because others let them. It's because on some level, we all carry a hidden desire to be led by them. We crave certainty over complexity, validation over truth, comfort over growth. There is a fool inside every mind, a voice that says, it's easier to obey than to think. That whispers, let someone else decide. That recoils from silence and fills it with noise. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't just write for rulers, he wrote for you. Because before the prince rules the state, he must first master himself, or be mastered by his shadow. And this is where the revolution begins. Not with overthrowing corrupt leaders, but with confronting the part of you that wants them, that feeds on distraction drama, and delusion, that finds peace in the fool's certainty because it's too afraid of its own uncertainty. The true rebellion is internal. To dethrone the inner fool is to stop outsourcing your responsibility, to stop blaming the world, and start interrogating the self. It's terrifying. It's liberating. Because once you do this, no fool can ever rule you again. You'll see through every charade, hear the manipulation behind every speech, feel the emptiness behind every performance, and you'll smile, not with arrogance, but with clarity. Because now you know, the throne was never theirs. It was yours, and you gave it away, until now. So take it back, not by shouting, but by becoming the one thing a fool can never defeat, a mind that has awakened. And from that moment forward, you are no longer ruled. You are real,